On to Batman.
Episode
Caped Crusader.
6
5
through
to 10.
6 through 10.
6 through 10. You're correct. I'm going to tell you off the rip which one my favourite episode was. And I bet you can't tell me why it was my favourite episode.
It's going to be episode 8.
Okay, why?
Because they reference 2 of the Robins.
Wrong, they referenced 4.
Oh. I didn't know there was 4. I picked up on Dixon and Jason.
Yeah, so you had Dickie, who was obviously Dick Grayson.
Yeah.
Then you had Jason or Jace, which was supposed to be
Jason Todd.
Yeah. Then you had Stephanie. Stephanie Brown is another one of the Bat fam.
Oh, right.
I don't think she was ever technically Robin. I might be wrong on that.
Okay.
But she was part of the Bat fam.
Right.
And then the last little kid with the slingshot, Carrie, was Robin in the Dark Knight Returns comic.
Oh.
Which I saw Dick first. I was like, the way that hair's done is really Dick Grayson-esque. That's a cool little thing. And I was like, oh, Jason with the red hair. And then when they said Steffi Brown, I was like, oh, okay, they're definitely doing this on purpose. This is awesome. So the only thing I would have rather is that episode ending with Bruce like, I want to adopt all 4 of them.
Well, so I picked up on, I think it's like, by the second kid with Jason, I was like, hang on, well, he was like Jace, and then it said Jason. I was like, wait, the first kid was Dickie. Oh, they're doing the Robins. This is either them hinting at the future use of these kids, or it's just them being like, here's a reference. I didn't know about the other 2, but yeah, I thought it was very cool. And I mean, there is still,
was also really cool.
Yeah, there's still potential that they do get used as Robins.
Yeah.
They're in an orphanage.
I think the second half of this season is really strong, even compared to the first half.
Yeah,
I feel like the stories in the second half, they like them first few episodes is very much, they are individual insular stories, but they're like, this is the vibe we're setting up here. Get used to it. Get used to the characters. And then the second half, they're like, okay, you know how these episodes go now. Let's tell some stories we want to tell.
Well, yeah, they started to, some of those characters we'd been introduced in the first 5 started getting weaved into a bit more of a central kind of story arc that was going on.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the use of Gentleman Ghost and getting to see Bruce kind of doubting the supernatural a little bit, because he's such a young Batman and because of the era, it makes sense to doubt it a little bit.
Yeah, I liked how he just presumed it was some guy behind it all. Like, that's
he was like,
kind
it's a Scooby-Doo villain.
Yeah, which he definitely gave that vibe even for me as a viewer. I was like, oh, this is like an episode of Scooby-Doo. But like, yeah, I enjoyed how he it's kind of the first introduction to something more than just like your standard villain who is either crazy or has a little bit of powers, and how he had to deal with that. I also thought it was just also, I'm guessing, I don't know if you have the answer, the guy that he got to help him in defeating Gentleman Ghost, the voodoo-y guy, is he a set important character in the Bat franchise?
I'm not aware of him being in the Bat franchise. What I will say is DC actually has a really, really good, solid cast of kind of mystical characters. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a character they've adapted from that or taken from that. I don't know a lot about that side of DC though, so I wouldn't be confident.
Just the way that it kind of like at the end, the bit of a focus on him, like a boon for a boon thing. Yeah. I was like, maybe this is meant to be a character you recognize, but I don't know.
Yeah. It was really cool. So what were our villains in the second half? We had...
So it was Gentleman Ghost to start. That was episode 6.
Yeah. Oh, then we had like the Hitman episode, didn't we?
Yeah. So who is the guy with the mask?
So that is Onomatopoeia.
Okay, I don't know that.
He's a really, really niche villain, and it took me a second to get who it was. And that's why he didn't speak. He made the noises.
Right, I enjoyed that.
Onomatopoeia is obviously the word for a word that's written how it sounds.
Yeah.
And it was weird, but I kind of really digged it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it because it was almost like in a way, almost like breaking the fourth wall when he was doing the punching. He's like, pow, wow. Like, it's like how they used to be written in comics.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I enjoyed that.
That was really cool. That was also just a good episode overall. Like, ignoring even onomatopoeia, which is, I feel like a deep cut for a lot of people. Just the flow of that episode altogether, I thought was really good. Did you also catch who the first Hitman was?
No.
Floyd Lawton, Deadshot.
Oh.
Yeah.
So he's going to come back because he was only injured.
So.
Well, they said he's in hospital recovering, so I feel like that sets him up to return.
I might be wrong here again. My lore isn't as strong. I feel like that is going back to like his Bronze Age lore, pretty accurate to what happened. He had tried to commit an assassination. He got shot in the process, and that made him a bit more gritty, and he like tried a lot harder. He was like, well, I'm never going to miss again. I'm going to get better, blah, 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 blah. And then obviously we had like the double bill at the end of dealing with the Two-Face storyline.
Yes.
I will say I wasn't a massive fan of the Two-Face design.
I didn't hate it because I feel like it fit within the art style that this episode is.
I do get that. My problem is, and this is a problem that superhero medium as in general has an issue with, disabled people being villains and being portrayed as monsters is a big problem. And obviously you can't get rid of these characters, they've been around for so long. But that's kind of why I tend to lean towards the more like designed version.
Got you.
Where it's like Two-Face is like traditional complexion, then it's just like kind of like coloured in purple on the other side.
Yeah, I get
Instead of being grotesque.
I get you.
And I mean, there's discussions on both sides. Thematically, I think it fits. I just am not as big a fan of that design. I did like the way they portrayed the split personality of Two-Face.
Yeah, no,
and it being more like Harvey Dent was trapped in there.
Yeah, I enjoyed how they went about that and how it kind of escalated.
Absolutely.
Also,
I will
like,
be honest,
it being weaved through the whole season of him being like this lawyer and stuff really kind of helped sell it as well.
Yeah. I was really expecting Barbara to get shot and paralyzed at some point.
Oh.
Because Barbara is Oracle in the comics as well as Batgirl at different times. I don't know what she is at the minute. And when she's Oracle, traditionally is when she's been disabled and she's in a wheelchair.
Got you.
And she becomes like Overwatch for Batman, and with her relationship building with Batman, and then her handcuffing herself to Harvey, I was like, this might, because in the comics she gets disabled due to an attack from the Joker, which is a pretty controversial way they did it at the time. That made a lot of people kind of like, you probably didn't need to do it that way. It kind of borders on fridging a little bit if Barbara wasn't such an established character.
Right.
So people weren't a big fan of that. So I wouldn't have been surprised if they would have tried to spin it a different way, but have the same outcome, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think it finished really solidly. I enjoyed watching Bruce and Alfred's relationship also get to the point where it's less, you're my butler, you have to do what I say. And it's more they're kind of like cooperators now.
I need you to do this sort of job.
That felt good.
And going back to the bar thing, I enjoyed how they slowly ramped up that relationship. I also thought it was funny because it's like when she says, "Is there a way? I need a way to contact you." I was like, "Oh, this is how they're going to set up the bat signal." Fully expected that to be the thing, and then he's like, "Yeah, I've got a phone number." It's like, oh.
So it felt like a lot of this show was kind of callbacks to like the 1960s Adam West Batman.
Right.
Because in that there wasn't the bat signal.
Oh, okay.
There was the red phone that was in the Batcave that would ring. And they had, so the map that they were using a lot of the time in the Batcave is very similar or basically identical to the map that they used in the 1960s Adam West Batman.
Right.
And also, I didn't realise it at the time either, but you know, in Harley Quinn's dungeon, you had all the people in weird costumes. A lot of them costumes were inspired by villains who appeared in Adam West's 1960 Batman show. So one of them was stylized based on Cesar Romero's Joker.
Right.
One of them was, but the Pharaoh dude was based on one of the characters. I forget his name from Adam West's show. So lots of like these were
Nods.
around the same kind of time period.
Hmm.
So they kind of also will fit thematically with what we're doing here.
Do we? I'm presuming you're on the same mindset of the teaser at the end is Joker.
That's absolutely joke, yeah.
Yeah.
I was very curious about his voice though. That was a very menacing voice rather than kind of.
So I think they're going to show us a bit of a like turn into
Yes.
more of a Joker we recognize.
So here's the thing. There is a very famous story called The Three Jokers.
Hmm.
And basically the entire premise is there's not actually been one Joker the whole time. There's been three.
Right.
But they've all pretended to be one guy.
Got you.
And this was kind of used as an in-universe reason for why the Joker's character isn't consistent.
Hmm.
And basically you've got one that's the clown.
Yep.
That just kind of does the wacky shit, and that's kind of more like your 60s version.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got the gangster,
Hmm.
which is like more brutal and more organized. And then you've got the comedian, I think the other one was called.
Hmm.
And he was more of like the Mark Hamill kind of Joker, where he did weird, wacky shit, but was a little bit organized, but cracked a lot more jokes.
Yeah, a bit unhinged.
And this version that we saw at the very end of the show seemed more like the gangster version. A lot more cold, a lot more calculated.
Thinking about the world they're setting up, the fact that Penguin's currently locked up and this Fawn is kind of his whole empire has been damaged after all the whole Two-Face stuff. It would make sense that they'd be like, oh, well, a gangster Joker would fit well into this situation.
Also, did you catch during the Carnival episode 8, that Killer Croc was one of the attractions?
Oh, is that who it was?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was Killer Croc. So they've done a very good job. They've laid the groundwork to get renewed for a second season. I don't know if it's confirmed or not. Batman?
I fully see this having at least 3 seasons if all going well. Like they've set up enough storylines off this first season that I think they could easily do 2 more. With characters coming back.
My only concern is I haven't seen much discussion about it. So if it's underperformed numbers wise, it might just get thrown by the wayside.
Yeah, potentially. Depends on, I guess, what James Gunn wants to do, really.
Oh, season 2 got greenlit before season 1 was even released.
Oh, well, there we go then.
That's so, good. By the sounds of it, unless this like absolutely bombs in their estimations, season 2's already been greenlit and will probably be a decent way through production.
Which, going off the Joker teaser, we know Harley Quinn's disappeared. I feel like the main story arc of season 2 might be around Joker and Harley.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you've got potential for other characters to return in like a season 3.
Yeah. But I'd give it a solid 7 or 8 out of 10. I think it really it gives the right kind of story for the time period it's set in.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't do anything immaculate. I think it captures the character of the Batman really well.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of weird discussions online about his use of a gun in the last episode, but it was also very much Batman actively not shooting someone, proving that he wouldn't. And it's also a very young Batman. And going back to the very, very early comics of the Batman in the 40s, he did use a gun.
Yeah, I from my point of view, it was very much like he had the gun. I was like, no way they're going to do a Batman that's like gone dark and starts using guns. Like, surely not. And then he does all the shots that's around him. I'm like, oh, it's showing his like resolve of no, I'm not going to use guns. It's just that he's young and he's on that, like you said, he's on the edge of, he's still young, still figuring it out. Like, part of him wants to use a gun there, but he also has enough control of himself that he's like, no, I'm not going to go stoop that low. And I think it's just to try and show a bit of character building. So people that are complaining about that, I think, it just didn't quite get the message it was trying to tell.
What I will say is a lot of the people who complain seem to be fans of a certain director who people weren't impressed when he had his Batman shooting people. So I think they're more kind of going, oh, but it's okay now, forgetting the context of this is Batman like a month into his career versus that director who had a Batman who'd already had Jason Todd die.
Yeah.
In all fairness. But overall, I enjoyed the show. I'm looking forward to a second season. It was actually a breath of fresh air.
Yeah,
and kind of storytelling wise.
Nice to get some animated DC. If
It
anything,
really was.
It's got me more excited for Creatures Commando.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm looking forward to season 2 of that, and hopefully it does get a few more seasons before maybe it needs to be kind of set down for DC's own thing, like the DCU thing to come along.
And once again, animation on Prime Video thriving.
Yeah, it really is.